Good morning. Today, my presentation will be on optimizing production sharing contracts, and my name is David Mercier. Production sharing contract objectives. The first objective is equity. Are the terms fair? Efficiency. Relatively easy to administer and easily checked. Flexible. It works within a high and low price structure. Does it incentivize and add value like field investment or greenhouse gas reductions? Governments can reduce their production share with environmental investments. This is really a great opportunity within these contracts to be very creative. Some of the questions: does it encourage cooperation, working towards a common goal? Does it increase the risk of field abandonment at a low oil or gas price? So some of the questions to ask that are really important to get into optimizing the contract. During the negotiations, it both involves cooperation and competition. The cooperation part involves brainstorming ideas that maximize value, incentivizing value-added activities like field investment, and for governments, a great opportunity for greenhouse gas elimination or reduction. And then once the cooperation and the brainstorming and all the ideas, everything is in it to maximize the value, the competition comes in when agreeing on how to divide up and kind of slice the pie. So you increase the value as much as possible, make the pie as big as possible, and then after that, figure out who gets what percent of that pie. Some of the country project risk and uncertainty. It's important to determine, in how much profit the government can actually take. You have the political risk, the risk of losing the lease, the geologic risk, which involves the proven, probable, and possible reserves, cost risk, which is country specific, like inflation, and then price. Oil price is traded globally, but natural gas is more localized and dependent on the local infrastructure. Some of the uncertainty that really can't be quantified. Certainly, financial history is filled with fat tail events or unusual and extreme swings price based on historical prices that seem completely implausible. Unlike dice, markets are not subject to risk, an arithmetic concept, but also uncertainty that doesn't conform to a numerical constraint. Some events are not only unpredictable, but are also unthinkable. And that's always good to, I think, understand as, we do all we can to quantify the risk, but there's always uncertainty that really can't be quantified within these projects. Some of the risks that can be quantified, this is the SP-defined risk spectrum, where you have, oil price, which is systemic, cost, environmental, regulatory. Certainly the revenue sharing framework should be engineered to provide the risk taker an internal rate of return commensurate to the total risk. This is just, if you look at the risk, certainly the lowest is the PDP reserves, 6 to 8% on typical, and then PDNP, PUD, proven reserves, internal rate of return, typical 20%, and then you go to probable, possible, and here's exploratory, which internal rate of return, 50% and more to incentivize the risk taker to take those type of risks. When we look at revenue sharing diagrams, first you start off with the revenue, and then we look at the costs. You have the operating costs, the development costs, you have the royalty, net profit share the government take, government taxes, and then what's left over, the contractor take. So certainly it's extremely important to get this piece right that's negotiated. So to incentivize the operation to continue to be viable at low prices and not cause premature abandonment. Sometimes bonuses are typically paid to the government with bids and new leases also, so that could be included as a cost. Worldwide profit sharing splits, a lot, some include cost recovery, which is essentially reimbursement of capital investment to incentivize investment. This is done before profit sharing starts, and it can vary from country to country from 0 to 100%. Then after cost recovery, you have a contractor take in percent. How much of the profit are they taking? This can vary from 9 to 60%. Government take, again, after cost recovery, and this is just the government share percent. This can vary from 0 to 51%, depending on what country you're in, and depending on risk. Again, if the risk is high, then the government will have to take much less because to incentivize investment. Most common types of production sharing contracts, you've got a fixed rate royalty, which is typically a sixth, an oil price-based sliding scale, where the royalty rate tracks oil price, net profit, where the payout is just a percent of the profit. To incentivize investment, all three can include cost recovery and incentives that increase the project value. These incentives can include, a payback on investment, internal rate of return once a hurdle is reached on an investment, or other metrics. Certainly a great opportunity to be creative here. If the government is really interested in greenhouse gases, they can include those incentives in terms of getting investment into those areas they deem that are value added. So some other creative ways. Certainly all of these is to increase the value of the project. So initially, that's definitely the first concern is everybody creatively and through brainstorming, increase the size. And then, again, we could have payback, no profit sharing until payback. We hit our internal rate of return hurdle, or some environmental targets are hit. And an example of this would be a contractor invest. So they agree to invest $50 million over 5 years on drilling. In return, the royalty rate or revenue share is reduced or eliminated until they hit these, they get payback of their investment, or they hit an internal rate of return hurdle, or could be environmental targets are hit. So note, in doing that, in getting that investment in, everyone can receive a slice of a bigger pie. So that could be better for everybody, where everybody really ends up better off. What is a royalty? A royalty is really just a percent of the gross revenue. Typically, it slides from 12.5% to 25% in the United States, and this is just an example of one. But essentially, it's just a percent of the revenue. And unlike in the profit sharing and net profits, it's not subject to continuous risk. So it's severed from the CapEx, the OpEx, or the abandonment liabilities. So really, the royalty is a much lower risk to the royalty owner than a net profits would be. Some of the technical rigors in evaluating profit sharing design, certainly stress testing the historic data, evaluating historical operating costs and profitability at various oil prices. You could calculate the break even at various oil prices to ensure that whatever framework is put in place, it's very robust. Evaluate the historic elasticity of production under low price scenarios. If production, certainly if the royalty is high, and oil price is low, the production could really drop. A high royalty rate could act as just like high operating cost. So you have to be very careful that, whatever framework is put in place, it's robust enough at lower prices that it doesn't cause premature abandonment. So all of those can be, you run lots of different scenarios using historical data. In the end, is it equitable? Does it add value? Is it efficient? And so you just kind of, go and run a lot of iterations to ensure that the proper design is in place. An example of the government and contractor take, here's just an example. You've got oil price here at $50 a barrel. You have operating costs at $20 a barrel. So the operating income is $30 a barrel. In this case, the government royalty and taxes is $12. So the net after-tax income is $18 per barrel. You can see the percentages of the oil price here, and then the breakdown between the government, what the government takes, the profits, and what the contractor takes in profits. So this is just a typical production sharing split. When we look at the tornado diagram, on that split, what we see is that oil price is the most important input. And so certainly the take is highly affected by oil price, which can make the case for a sliding scale royalty that tracks oil price, or a net profits type of an agreement. A sliding scale royalty, that is a percent of the gross revenue that tracks oil price, can significantly reduce the administrative cost over a net profits. Certainly a net profit, you have to be very cognizant of what charges, and it could be result in lawsuits and disagreement over what's chargeable. The royalty rate, the sliding scale kind of design, the first step is just calculate a simple break even. So if the oil price, this is just a simple example, the oil price is $40, the operating cost is $20, other costs can be included in here. And so just, the break even is 50%. So break even royalty rate. So that's certainly a royalty rate which you want to be below. So that's the break even. Essentially, the royalty owner takes all the profit under that royalty rate. So that's kind of the first step. So then after that, and here's the example here. What you have is you have the oil price, various oil prices, various break even royalty rates, and then a percent of the break even. So this is kind of the starting point for designing a price-based sliding scale royalty rate. A royalty rate that tracks oil price. So here you have the break even, and then this is just a simple example, 30%. So you can kind of see. So at $20, the royalty rate is 0. At $100 a barrel oil price, the royalty rate is 24%. So fixed rate royalty, some of the benefits, certainly no cost risk, easy to administer. Some of the risk, with low oil price, if the royalty rate is relatively high, the royalty owner may receive royalty revenue while the owner actually loses money. So this can really cause premature abandonment of the field in a situation where everybody loses. The sliding scale royalty, some of the benefits, again, no cost risk, easy to administer. It's progressive, so it's lower with oil price being low and vice versa. Some of the risk is poor design. And I think, calculating the break even, taking a percent of the break even, looking back at how it would have worked historically can avoid this risk. So a good design could be in place. It's important to remember the royalty, the production elasticity. When the oil prices are relatively low, the effect on royalty has on the production rate. If the oil and gas production elasticity to the royalty is high, then oil production can significantly drop at low oil prices, creating a lose-lose type situation. This could be looked at, when you look at historical data and cost, you could kind of stress test the royalty schedule to see if this is the case. The production sharing framework within a game theory framework. This is just kind of looking at, you've got a high oil price, and if you have a high royalty rate, certainly, that works. If you have a low oil price and a high royalty rate, there's a problem. But the optimal solution is that, if you have a high oil price, a relatively higher royalty rate, a low oil price, a relatively low royalty rate. So you can kind of see that's where the best situation in terms of ensuring that the operation can go on and be economically viable. Profits, you pay them. It's a progressive system. The risk is the administrative costs can be extremely high in a net profits because the accounting, and it could be subject to disagreements, and even at times end up in litigation over what's chargeable and what's not chargeable. In terms of technical rigor, this graph is just a good framework for looking at what projects, how to rank projects. You've got discounted profit to investment ratio on the y-axis. You've got payout on the x-axis, and then 1 through 8 are just various projects. So you can see in terms of criteria, these are the projects that rank the best. When evaluating what profit sharing framework works best, you could kind of look at, how does it make future investment under, let's say, a sliding scale royalty at $55 a barrel? Do these projects still remain economically viable, or does it cut some of these out? So just a framework for evaluating the various projects and how the profit sharing agreement could affect those projects. Summary and conclusion: production sharing contracts are a great opportunity to incentivize contractors to invest in value-added activities. These activities can include development and/or government improvements in the environment. For governments trying to meet environmental objectives, this could be a great tool to be creative. In any profit-sharing agreement, the economic interdependence is large. These negotiations should not be treated as a zero-sum game like chess, where someone wins and someone loses. Net profits sharing contracts are progressive systems employed in many places around the world. However, these contracts require the mineral owner to be constantly evaluating the details of the operation. For many operations, this additional accounting expense is cost prohibitive. This continuous auditing of the operation to ensure proper payment can be costly for both the mineral owner and the operator. And in summary, it's in everyone's interest to invest the resources to achieve an equitable and robust agreement with the best incentives, because once it's in place, change is not that easy. So I want to thank everybody, and any questions I'm open to answer. Thank you.